Hey everyone, welcome back. So as you read, we're going to be doing something about the haunted today. Now I will be listing everything down below, but I'm going to show you guys really quick what I'm going to be using for this Manny. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So today I actually wanted to do a story about like a haunted house kind of thing. And the first thing that I remember is the Winchester Mystery House. Now, if you guys have heard about this, you know the last name Winchester is very prominent in the gun community, but I want to tell you a story of like how they got led up to that. So as kids, we can remember doing traditions and making memories in like our favorite like childhood home. So every house has its story. It was just unfortunate that the Winchester house had a lot of grief and death surrounding its story. In San Jose, California, there's an old Victorian home that's super eclectic, and it's thought to be one of the most haunted places in America. It's not your normal house. There are doors that when you open them up, there's a 13-foot drop, stairs that wind up but go to nowhere, windows that are built into the floor, and there's never-ending halls. Now this house, by the end, it took about 40 years to build, but it also makes you wonder like what's really going on behind those closed doors. Like, why did she make this house the way it is? And you guys, this house is still up and you can actually take tours. It's like in the middle of literally modern society where there's like gas stations and a shopping center and places to eat, and then all of a sudden this big Victorian house. Now this house is 24 square feet. And just to give you another example of like how different this house is from the inside, there's like staircases behind these closed doors, but first you got to actually find these closed doors that they're supposedly on the first floor. Once you go up, they actually lead to nothing but the ceiling. But once you try to turn around and try to open up another door, now you're met with this like outside, but you can't really like step down because like again, it's like a 13-foot drop. And then if you open another door, it's like another door to this like really narrow hallway, and then all of a sudden you're lost. All over the house there's stained glass windows with like inscriptions on it. Like for example, there's one that was a quote from Shakespeare saying, "Wide unclasped tables of their thoughts." The owner of this house is Sarah Winchester. Now her life is wrapped up in just grief and death. I mean, even from the time before she was even born, she actually was named after an older sister that she actually never got to meet because she ended up dying before Sarah number 2 was born. Now, she's originally from New Haven, Connecticut, and she's considered middle class. She was shy when she was young, and she wasn't really interested in any other things like the other younger kids or her brothers and sisters were into. She actually liked things like architectural stuff and woodwork. So when she was growing up, she actually spent a lot of time watching the craftsmen work in the mill. And this is probably why her home is obviously so unique. As she was growing up, she actually took interest in these two groups called Rosicrucianism. I hope I said that right, I'm sorry. And then the Freemasonry. So as you guys know, or if you don't know, the Freemasonry people or Freemasonry, I don't know how to say that word. They're actually one of the oldest fraternity organizations in the world. As for the other group, they're known for more spiritualists, where they study the physical laws of the universe. Now both are known for their secrecy and their symbolism, and then their connection to occult. And both of them, their beliefs are that knowledge is power, and the only way to get knowledge is to learn through your spiritual path. As a woman, of course, you're not allowed to join the Freemasonry, but she did learn their ways and actually took that into her adulthood. When she was 23, all of her siblings, like her sisters, ended up getting married and started families. So of course her parents thought like, hey, it's your turn kind of thing. And back then your family actually chose your mate, and she ended up getting married to a 25-year-old named William Winchester. Now she actually got a big plus for this one because not only was he handsome, but this family was already stacked. I mean, they were already banked. The Winchesters actually had a family-owned clothing business, and of course William was due to take over. But soon after they end up getting married, and this is where all the tragedy starts to happen. In 1862, this is also when the Civil War was happening, and her brother-in-law ended up getting wounded at battle, and he just, he didn't make it. And now also their business was also taking a hit because of the war. And then William's 2-year-old nephew ended up dying from an illness. Now, William's sister, soon after that, ended up also dying because of childbirth. And 19 days later, the baby ends up dying. So like I said, this family is wrapped up in grief and death. Now, 2 years later, she ended up getting pregnant herself. And of course, they were elated. In June 1866, she ended up giving birth to a little girl named Annie. Now, Annie had issues as well, and she was having trouble breastfeeding. And because she wasn't getting the nourishment from the milk, and she also couldn't digest the milk very well, Annie also ended up passing away 1 month after her birth because of malnutrition. Now, because all of this, they decided that there was going to be no more babies in their future. But then this is when the Winchester gun started coming into play. Back then, there was a single shot carbine weapon, where that means you would shoot one time and then you would have to reload it. And it can take anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes to reload. Oliver Winchester, which is William's father, ends up buying a revolver company that was going out of business and ends up hiring a mechanic. And then they both created the first repeated rifle. So this rifle, which now known, of course, the Winchester rifle, shoots 15 shots in 10 seconds, you guys. Now, at the same time, there was a big movement where people started moving back to like the West. And this created like a big rift between like the natives and the newcomers. So then, of course, the gun sales started going up because, you know, you got to have guns when there's in the wild west, I guess. But then this also made the Winchesters even more rich. So much so that the Winchester gun became the icon of that day. Now, no money can stop death from like knocking at your door. In May 1880, Sarah's mom ended up dying. And then that December in the same year, her father-in-law ends up dying after a stroke. That March of 1881, then her husband William dies from tuberculosis. Now, after his death, it's known that she just became super introvert and just like a recluse. And people say that she actually went to Europe to visit all the places that her and William loved, which I kind of thought that was cute. I mean, she just wanted to be closer to William in any way possible. But nothing was known after her activities for a few years after that, because in 1885, that's when she decided to move to California, and that's when she started her new adventure. In 1886, she got in touch with an old business partner of William's. I think his name was Ned, and she was just saying to him that, hey, I need a new home to live in. And he says, I got you. There's a place in Santa Clara Valley. I believe it's next to San Francisco. And it's a ranch, it's 45 acres, and it's isolated, which she loved. Now, this place was actually like a farmhouse. It only had 8 rooms, which to her was kind of actually small and kind of like run down, but she was excited to start renovating. Also, the house reminded her of one of the properties that her and William visited in Spain. So that's when she actually ended up calling the property Yanata Villa, which again, I thought that was cute. So she ended up purchasing the property, and she starts to hire the crews, and she gets to work. So she actually makes all the designs and all the architectural decisions. And so there's like no blueprints to this. She literally sketches them on a piece of paper and gives it to the crew and says, okay, I want it to look like this. Now for her though, her style was getting kind of weird, or like just didn't make sense to the workers. She would actually give them a project to start on, then all of a sudden she'll want them to completely stop and just abandon the project and then start a whole new one at the other side of the home. Or even like if she didn't like it, she'd be like, okay, tear it down and start again. Now, of course, to her, money's no issue. So, I mean, it didn't really bother her. But to the crew, they're like, we just spent months working on this and now you want us to do it again. At the end, you guys, it started from 8 rooms and it ended up being 26 with way more hallways and sitting rooms. I mean, she even added floors to it, to up to like in certain places they had 5 floors. And she even added a tower that was 7 stories tall, kind of like a Rapunzel's tower. But it was not for the family. She actually decided to buy her sisters their own home in another place in California. And you would think, like, why would she do that? Why would she want to live alone? Like, what is going on? And when she goes to town, when she ever goes into town, she always wears black, kind of like she's always still in mourning. And her head is completely always covered with a veil. And her hands, she always wears gloves. And people never understood this. Now, we'll go through that in a little bit later, but just keep that in mind. Now, she never invites other people from like where she lives to come visit. And only the people that have access to the home are her workers and her staff. Which, you guys, let me tell you something. They're #loyal, because these people never talk about what's going on in the house or even the activities in the house, even after she passes away. Now, even when Teddy Roosevelt comes to town to visit the estate, he's not even allowed in and the gates are closed. Now, of course, the gossip around town starts to build up. Basically, they're saying, why didn't she just let the president in to the home? But their train of thought, or what it said, that she didn't want no visitors until the actual house was going to be completed, which, by the way, never going to happen. And in 1895, neighbors thought that she was kind of superstitious. Like, she never stopped working, because if she thought she stopped working, that's when she would get ill and die. Again, we'll go through that in a little bit later, but keep that in mind. So for her, it's just keep building, keep building, keep moving, keep moving. In 1906, early morning, in April, there was an earthquake that hit 7.8 on the Richter scale in the Bay Area and almost literally destroyed the entire house. This earthquake had over 3,000 people dead and 2,800 other buildings destroyed. Literally, it looked like a big Lego mess. She was even in the house when hers collapsed on her, but luckily she survived. So what she does is she starts to clean, and of course, she begins to build again. She even added an elevator, which back then I didn't even know they had elevators, but obviously that's pretty pricey because it's pricey nowadays. So in 1910, construction actually starts to slow down, and also her health. Now, by this time, she's actually around 7 years old, so I don't think it's a correlation. I kind of think it's a coincidence, but that's just my opinion. Now, by late fall, she just gets really, really bad. Like, it doesn't look good for her. In September, on the 5th of September, I believe, she ended up passing away. Now, her staff, which I thought this was really nice of her, was giving like a stipend or like part of her monies and relief from their duties. But even after death, again, you guys, they did not speak about the activities within the home. So after her death, there was part of her land that was able to get sold, but the home actually did not get sold because they didn't like think it was livable. And of course, like, why, how could it be if there's like windows on the floor? Like, you can't have that around kids. Like, let's be real. And like I said, you guys, she started building again after the earthquake. So now, by the end of this time, it was actually up to 160 rooms with over 10,000 windows and like 2,000 doors. I mean, this place is massive, you guys. Now, the only person that was actually interested in buying the home goes by the name of John Brown. John Brown was actually an amusement park owner, and when he buys the home, he says, of course, I'm not going to live in it, but I am going to use it as a tourist area for like tourists to come by and just view all of the crazy eclectic things in the home. So that's what he does. And like I told you guys earlier, this house is still available for you guys to tour. So you can actually go there in real life and like take pictures and just view all the certain different things in the home. Now, there are certain places where you aren't allowed to go in. They are blocked off. But I mean, it's still kind of cool to even go there. So John Brown, actually, he's the one who named it the Winchester Mystery House. And it's kind of like a little fun house that you would find at carnivals, because there's even like tiny doors that adults can't even fit in. And then there's like this place where there's these 3 doors. The first door is like an exit, but then the other one is like a drop down to the kitchen. Like, literally, you open it, it drops down to the kitchen. And then there's another one that has like a narrow passageway that leads to like a closet into like like a big closet where like it looks like almost like a small tiny room. This was thought to be where she would do her seances. Now we're getting into like when they starts getting haunted. This is when all the haunted kind of gossip started to happen. Even so much so that they caught the attention of the famous Harry Houdini. Now, he was in no way a believer by any means. In October 1924, this is when they decided to give Harry Houdini a private tour when he came to visit, because he was doing like a show in their area, and they arranged to do a seance with him. Supposedly, he ends up leaving as a believer, and he's so shook up that he said that no one is allowed to speak of what happened within the house. People say that he did see the ghost of Sarah. On another separate occasion, there was a tour guide leading a tour, and she hears a voice and she thinks it was one of the visitors that was left behind. So when she goes to check, she actually sees like a dark figure swooshing across the room, and then all of a sudden it vanishes. So obviously that freaks her out. Now, in this home, there's a place called the Hall of Fires. This is where it has 4 large fireplaces in this one room, which I think that's kind of weird and a little dangerous, but I'm just saying. Now, there was a staff member there cleaning one of the fireplaces when he actually gets pushed so aggressively that he almost falls off the ladder. So, of course, he drops everything he's doing. He runs to the other side of the room and literally never goes back to that room. I mean, I wouldn't either. Now, there's also other sightings. There was a man pushing a wheelbarrow, which they thought that was one of Sarah's workers from back in the day. A bushy-haired woman that's like in the windows, and she's always there in the windows, but never in the room when you go up there. And then, of course, Sarah herself walking the grounds, kind of like guarding her home. There's this like saying that me and my friends have that once you think something's haunted, you kind of like always hear sounds or always hear creaking, kind of just like freak yourself out. So this could be one of those type of situations where people are just talking to talk, and once you say it's haunted, now everybody believes it's haunted. But this kind of doesn't make sense when like people actually see the sightings or feel the ghost or things like that. So I don't know. What do you think? Now, there were some things that happened to Sarah that can be explained. Now, this one is what I remember growing up by, this particular story. There was a rumor that after William died, she actually went to go visit a medium. And that's like basically a person who can speak to spirits or speak to the people who have passed. His name was Adam Coons. And he said that, it was said that he actually summoned William. And she basically told him, hey, I miss you, I love you, and I can't wait to be with you. But William said that you're in danger, and that all the ghosts that have died by the barrel of the Winchester gun is going to be haunting you for the rest of your life. And the only way to get rid of the ghost is to build them a home where their souls to rest. So that's why it is believed that she was always building and always coming up with different rooms and things like that. Honestly, you guys, this can be a lot of souls, because by 1880, there were over 200,000 rifles sold, and there was still more being produced. So who knows? Like, this is why I said construction will never be done. So she actually suffered from rheumatoid arthritis, so hence why she always wore gloves. And maybe that's why she had that room with the 4 fireplaces, because heat actually helps with the joint pain. And she actually lost her teeth later on in life, so maybe that's why she wore the veil. So those two things can be explained. And some people say that the windows on the floors were actually designed to bring light to the floors below. But I'm like, well, why don't you just put another window at the floor below? I don't know. That's just me. Anyways, so the stairs leading to nowhere, or like those doors that have a drop, they think it was from actually the earthquake damage. And since she just really didn't fix it, she just kind of like kept going and building. So those things can try to be explained that way. But then I'm like, what about the symbolism and then the quotes in the windows? Like, how do you explain that? Sarah was said to be inspired by the designs of a person called M.C. Escher. Now, by the way, you guys, he was also a Freemasonry person. Now, he actually has a picture where like there's like a bunch of stairs literally going to nowhere. I think they call it Define the Laws of Physics, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people have seen this painting. So yeah, that was one of her inspirations, I guess. But I mean, that doesn't exclude like the things about the spirits or like Harry Houdini's experience or even the ghost encounters that like the staff has had. So again, like, what do you guys think? Do you guys really do think this place is haunted? Do you think Sarah was cursed, like that she did have all these ghosts kind of basically haunting her for the rest of her life? I don't know. So I hope you guys enjoyed this story and the story about the Winchester and the Winchester House. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.